Idea is eternal. Bodies which manifest idea are transient, but their repetitions are eternal. There is no exception to this process of repetitions of bodies, which is called reincarnation when applied to man. The process is universal, however, and applies to all creating things, not man alone. If one would know the heartbeat of the universe, one could know it by comprehending this rhythmic, balanced interchange between the pairs of opposite conditions which gave eternity to this universe through eternal repetitions of living-dying sequences. Thus it is that the life-death-growth-decay process of division of an equilibrium into two oppositely conditioned states of motion is repeated in every action-reaction of motion, no matter how simple or how great. Postulate. All matter begins its accumulation from cone bases on wave axis. It multiplies its accumulation while spiraling to cone apices. It ceases to accumulate when it becomes a sphere, and redistributes its accumulation in rings around the sphere to become cone bases on wave axis for repeating its accumulation. Verily, the sphere, which carbon is, has arisen from its resting place to stand up and go into action in a divided three-dimensional universe of change for just a little while before laying down to rest in the undivided universe of stillness in order to regenerate vitality for again arising into action. The 9-octave periodic table of the elements. The periodic table of today's lists 92 elements, including isotopes and inert gases. Many listed as elements are isotopes, which are divided fractional elements. My periodic table lists 63 elements, 49 isotopes, and 9 inert gases, making a total of 121. From nature's point of view, there is but one element, carbon, and but one form, the cube sphere. Carbon crystallizes in the form of its wave field, which is a true cube. The nucleus of its system is a true sphere. The plane of its system is 90 degrees from its wave axis, 90 degrees from its pole of rotation, and 90 degrees from the axis of its north-south poles. The shape of the carbon atomic system is a disk, as shown in Figure 131. The orbit of every planet of the carbon system is on the plane of the carbon equator, and that equator is on the plane of the wave amplitude. Carbon thus manifests balanced form in body and unity in balanced sex mating. It has but one equator. All elements which are not on wave amplitudes are disunited pairs which are divided by 3 equators. Each single element is divided in itself by its own equator, and each pair is divided by the wave amplitude equator. Carbon symbolizes the marriage ideal in nature. Its one equator is the bond of its unity. It is no longer a pair, and that is what marriage in nature means, and what it should mean in man's mating practices. Divided pairs have opposed attributes. The negatives of pairs are metallic acids. The positives are metallic alkalis. All are conductive, for conductivity is a search for balance. Balanced unity voids acidity, alkalinity, metallic quality, and conductivity. By eliminating these qualities, carbon becomes a salt, which means a mineral with the qualities of stone. When disunited, equal and opposite pairs marry, such as sodium and chloride, they likewise have but one equator instead of three the instant they unite as sodium chloride. They likewise lose their metallic, acid, alkaline, and conducive qualities and crystallize as true cubes. An example of unbalanced mating in nature is that of the marriage of sodium and iodine, or sodium and bromine. Each of these marriages has stability, but there is a residue of unbalance in each of them, which is evidenced in distorted cube crystals. Each of them would likewise continue as harmonious marriages unless chlorine appeared, in which case nature would immediately annul the marriage in favor of chlorine. Carbon has the highest melting point and greatest density of all the elements. This means that carbon is also the most enduring of all elements because of having accumulated more time cycles. It likewise means that carbon is the least radioactive of all elements because radioactivity only belongs to express itself by outward explosion at wave amplitude, although it is strongest at that reversal point where generoactivity and radioactivity meet. It is from nature's point of view that we will very briefly describe the 9-octave cycle of the elements with the hope of unifying man's point of view with that of nature. The one supreme outstanding characteristic of this electric universe of two-way balanced effects of motion is the cyclic unfolding of matured body forms to manifest mind ideal, and their refolding into the source of all ideal. Bodies of matured forms are unfolding by a series of 4 efforts in positive-negative pairs. Likewise, they are refolding by a reverse series of 4 efforts in similarly mated pairs. Each effort in nature to unfold and refold is a stage of inward-outward growth toward the formation of a matured, polarized body, and away from it towards its seed ideal. The 4th positive-negative pair of every octave is united as one. They unite as one at their wave amplitude, which in every wave points directly toward the center of gravity. These 2 united efforts constitute the matured body form of conceived ideal. They are the meeting points of life and death, the reversal points of rest which divide generation and radiation. At that meeting point is the greatest density, highest melting point, and highest potential of the entire cycle. In that united pair is the matured body of the one element, carbon. Every completed ideal in nature is expressed in 9 efforts, or stages, which are 8-octave waves, plus the matured centering amplitude wave of the whole 9-octave cycle. Each octave of the elements grows from its inert gas, just as a tree grows from its seed. The inert gases record and store for repetition all that has gone before it in that octave. In the Mendeleev table of the elements, hydrogen is shown without an inert gas. This is as impossible as producing a child without parents. Hydrogen is also shown as being the only element in a whole octave. That is also as impossible as charging only one of the 2 cells of a battery. Hydrogen is not one element, but 8. It is a whole octave in itself, but nature has not made it possible for the senses of man to detect this easily. When I explained this fact many years ago to science, it went into research and found other tones of this octave, which it mistakenly called isotopes. What science found were full tones, not isotopes. Science has numbered the elements from 1 to 92, however, on the presumption that there were no others, and had no alternative but to call them isotopes. In the Mendeleev table are shown without inert series, and let me start over again. In the Mendeleev table, series 5, 7, 10, 11, and 12 are shown without inert gases and without being full octaves. These series are also partially filled with isotopes, which do not belong in the groups in which they are placed. Also, a group numbered 8 consists of 9 isotopes to which full numbers have been given. In fact, all isotopes are numbered as though they were full tones. Isotopes do not appear in nature until the 6th octave, and then only between 3 and 4 positive and 4 and 3 negative. They increase in numbers in the succeeding older octaves because the aging carbon is unable to reach the true sphere in either of them. Its many attempts to do so result in producing many isotopes. Like the fully matured strong man who keeps his vitality for a long period of time, carbon rises again to amplitude at silicon as a nonmetal, but from there on the gradual radioactive decline makes it impossible for another balanced nonmetal to appear at wave amplitude. The 5th octave of the balancing one of the time which nature demands in all of her expressions. Read it again. The 5th octave is the balancing one of the 9, which nature demands in all of her expressions. That is the octave of matured vitality. The 4 older octaves are fully evident to our senses because they have accumulated density by accumulating time cycles. The 4 younger octaves are beyond our sense range, with the exception of hydrogen, which has been listed as only one of that octave. These exist in nature, for nature is balanced. It must have the 4 younger octaves to counterbalance the older ones. As I have heretofore said, one can know many things which he cannot sense. One can therefore know that balance in nature's polarization principle demands equality of division in all of her paired effects. It is not just necessary to know this fact, however, to be convinced of its truth, or it can be proven by reading the history of the elements from their beginning spectrum lines. The red lines in the spectrum of hydrogen do not belong to one octave alone. Each red line tells of another invisible octave. Spectrum lines should be read as accumulated time in history, not as though all the lines of any reading belong to one element of one octave. The reason for the intervals between these red lines in the spectrum is not because they represent the pressures of one element, but because each sequential octave increases in density, which also retards time sequences. The reverse of this principle applies in depolarizing bodies. Depolarizing bodies on the radioactive half of any cycle project time accumulations from them at tremendous speeds. Helium and other inert gases explode outwardly from tungsten at approximately half the speed of light, while similar rays explode outwardly from radium, actinium, thorium, uranium, and uridium at almost the speed of light. And excuse me, I didn't pronounce those right, I'm sure. Conversely, generative rays explode inwardly at tremendous speeds in the first 3 invisible octaves. Alpha, beta, gamma, and cosmic rays explode inwardly to center invisible generating matter as they and the older inert gases explode outwardly from degenerating visible matter. The 9 inert gases which form the seed patterns of unfolding matter mystify observers who do not comprehend their action or their purpose. The refusal of inert gases to combine with elements has always been an insoluble mystery.